You cry more than other people, and somewhere along the way, you learned to apologize for it. Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive, that you take things too personally, that you need thicker skin. But what if the tears aren't the problem? What if they're just the surface of something deeper, something your brain is trying to tell you? Let's start with what actually happens when you cry easily. It's not just sadness. You know that. You tear up during movies, during conversations that get too real, when someone shows you unexpected kindness, when you're angry and wish you weren't crying but you can't stop. Sometimes it feels like your emotions have no filter, like there's a dial inside you that's turned up too high and everyone else got the normal setting. You've probably wondered if something's wrong with you. Here's the truth. Your brain isn't broken. It's just wired with a shorter emotional pathway. Think of your emotional system like a smoke alarm. Some people's alarms only go off when the house is actively burning. Yours goes off when someone burns toast. It's not faulty, it's sensitive. And sensitivity, in psychological terms, is a trait, not a flaw. It's called sensory processing sensitivity, and researchers estimate about 20% of people have it. Your nervous system processes emotional stimuli more deeply. You notice subtleties others miss, a shift in someone's tone, a look that lingers half a second too long, a memory that surfaces without warning. Your brain doesn't skim, it absorbs. And when something moves you, even slightly, your body responds with tears because that's the fastest way to release what you're holding. Crying isn't weakness, it's signal processing. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain. When you experience something emotional, your limbic system lights up. That's the part of your brain responsible for emotion, memory, and arousal. The amygdala, in particular, acts like an emotional thermostat. For some people, that thermostat has a wide range. It takes a lot to tip it. For you, the range is narrower. Your amygdala reaches threshold faster. And when it does, it sends a message to your autonomic nervous system: release. Tears are part of that release. They're not just water. They contain stress hormones like cortisol. Crying is your body's way of flushing out emotional overwhelm. But here's the part most people don't understand. You're not crying because you're weak. You're crying because you're feeling at full capacity. Your emotions don't have a waiting room. They move through you in real time. And that's not a bug, that's a feature. So what do you do with this? How do you live in a world that treats emotional restraint as maturity and tears as inconvenience? You stop trying to be less of what you are, and you start working with your wiring, not against it. Here's a framework. 1. Name what you're feeling before it becomes tears. Your emotions move fast, but they're not random. There's always a trigger. Practice catching the feeling while it's still forming. Ask yourself, is this sadness, frustration, overwhelm, gratitude? The act of naming slows down the emotional cascade. It gives your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, a chance to come online. You're not suppressing, you're translating. And translation gives you choice. 2. Reframe your tears as information. Your body is speaking. The question is, what is it saying? Maybe the tears mean you're undersupported. Maybe they mean you care deeply about something. Maybe they mean you've been holding too much for too long. Tears are data. Treat them like it. When you cry, don't just ask, why am I crying again? Ask, what is this telling me about what I need right now? Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's boundaries. Sometimes it's just permission to feel without judgment. 3. Build a container for your emotional intensity. This is where most people get it wrong. They try to shrink your emotions. You don't need to shrink them. You need to give them space. That could be journaling, movement, creativity, conversation with someone who doesn't need you to be calm. Think of it like a river. If you try to dam it up, the pressure builds. But if you give it a channel, it flows. Your tears need a channel. 4. Separate your sensitivity from your identity. You are not a crier. You are a person who processes emotion through tears. That's a mechanism, not a personality. When you collapse the two, you start to perform the role. You become the sensitive one, the emotional one, the one everyone has to be careful around. But you're more than that. You can be sensitive and strong, emotional and competent, easy to tears and hard to break. These things coexist. 5. Protect your nervous system. If you cry easily, you're likely also more affected by noise, crowds, conflict, and overstimulation. That's not coincidence. It's the same sensory sensitivity showing up in different forms. You need more recovery time than other people, more quiet, more space between intense experiences. This isn't selfishness, it's maintenance. You wouldn't expect a high-performance engine to run on low-grade fuel. Don't expect your system to function without the conditions it needs. Here's the integration. Your tears are not a malfunction. They're a feature of a system that feels deeply, processes richly, and responds authentically. The world will try to teach you that emotions should be controlled, managed, minimized. But control is not the same as health. You don't need to cry less. You need to understand why you cry, what it's telling you, and how to honor that without shame. Think of yourself as someone fluent in a language most people only half speak. You feel in full sentences, others feel in fragments. That doesn't make you weak, that makes you awake. So the next time the tears come, let them. Not because you're giving up, but because you're listening. Your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet, and maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe that's something to trust.